So what we wanted to talk to you all today about was how best to work with our interagency partners. So from the lens of both career tech ed as well as general education, special education. And what this slide is showing, and this is a diagram that we've used for probably about the last 6 or 7 years. It was developed from work done from Paula Kohler from the University of Michigan. And it was looking at, for secondary transition, what should an effective program look like school-wide. So basically, that's what these circles are in the outside structure. And in the center, that first yellow circle is talking about the fact that it should be an individualized process based on the needs of that student. So incorporating the IEP process as well as the career interests that that student has, the programs, the activities, the classes they're involved with. Then you have the youth participation piece here, which is the section that really is actively engaging the youth in this process. And I'll just speak from the schools that I've worked with and what I see. I don't necessarily know if we do a great job with that. I think we do a lot of stuff to kids without actually having their input or their active engagement in it. So it is advocacy, it is self-determination, but it really is actively engaging that young person in that process. We are going to talk about today partnerships. And when you look at this slide, these are all the different types of partnerships that we engage with in special education, right? So we are talking about family engagement. We are talking about engagement from our interagency partners, and I guess that's how I like to think about that. So within a school, you have the special education staff, you have the guidance staff, you have the general education staff. Then if that student is involved with any type of ancillary types of supports like occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech language therapy, you have career tech ed. And those are all internal within a school. And I think what will happen, I'm sitting at the last session where they were using Google Forms to communicate more effectively. That's really what we see as a problem in schools, is that even within the school, people aren't talking to each other. You know, I mean, one example that I have is a student may be involved in, say, occupational therapy or physical therapy. He goes or she goes and sees this individual 45 minutes once a week, and that's the only time those skills are worked on. And it's a little ridiculous because that's something that should be done across the board. I also see it in communications with career tech ed. I worked, and really starting to date myself, it was like 28 years ago with Ruth Leibel when I was at an approved private school, and she's still center. But one of the things that we really tried to do was to communicate effectively with each other on what that student's needs were, what special accommodations worked, and to really have that dialogue back and forth. And I think that is a really important piece. But then what we're going to be really focusing on today is looking at the outside agencies. So we're really looking at the outside supports that are available for students. So Danny is here. The bulk of what we're going to be talking about today is the supports and services offered through the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. One of the main reasons, things have changed. As of this year, there's the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. WIOA is the acronym that gets thrown around. And that is changing the landscape on what's going to be happening and what supports OVR is going to be providing for kids 14 to 21 and older, actually. So we're going to concentrate on that, but know that there's also other things happening that we're not going to necessarily spend a lot of time on, but for kids that have intellectual disabilities. There's a change in the CMS final rule, throwing out lots of acronyms to you all, but basically what that is doing is it's saying that we really need to have community integrated work for students with intellectual disabilities, and we can no longer be placing students in sheltered workshops. It's kind of like that in a nutshell. So that is another thing that's currently happening out there. So I think it's really important that we make these linkages. We're connecting with our agency partners. I'll be honest, 28 years of doing transition type of work, this is probably the most change that I've ever seen. And it's mainly doing what's happening with the agency involvement piece. And great stuff. Sorry. So one of the things I think as we look at working with agencies and working with our other stakeholders is that we're really trying to ensure that the kids we're working with are successful as they transition to adult life. That we're really recognizing their abilities, that we're encouraging them to be actively engaged in this process, and that we're promoting that equal full participation in their community. We look at successful collaboration, and I think that, again, when I was talking about inter-school collaborations as well as collaborations with other agencies, these are 7 factors that are considered necessary for successful interagency collaboration. And some of the ones that I think that we have seen over the years in working at the state level with our interagency partners and then working through local transition coordinating councils, one is communication, because we don't speak the same language. And by that, we all have these different acronyms we use. We also, kind of along with that piece, that communication piece, is we all have different regulations and rules that we're trying to follow. So it's important that we have a good understanding of what the agencies are about and how they operate and how we can interact with them. I think the other part of this is understanding how to best collaborate effectively. One of the other big ones is that second to last bullet, minimizing turf issues. It's like, don't screw with me, that's my kid, I don't want to work with you because they are mine. And I think we need to move away from that and look at this is one kid. So it's one kid that goes to a career tech ed center, that's in special ed, that also goes into general education classes, maybe has behavioral health needs, and is now working with our Norway Reach coordinator at OBR. That needs to be connected. And it really should not be all these separate entities coming together. It really needs to be unified. Agency involvement should be based on the individual needs of the student. And by that, you really need to have a good understanding about that young person, what their disability is, and what agencies exist in your area to offer support. Not one agency is necessarily the right one for all people. However, I'm going to take a step back and say now most of the youth you're working with do need to go through OBR for at least an initial evaluation. And that's something that Dana will be talking about in a bit. Know that what are the requirements for agency involvement? We are in the process of working on developing a document that kind of is going to outline that. So this is OBR. These are kind of the ages that things occur. This is the intellectual disability world. This is when different things will occur and different supports you can receive. The same with mental health, Department of Health. Because it gets really, really confusing. You know, again, I've been doing this for a long time, and I still got to look this stuff up. The other important thing, too, is become familiar with the agencies in your specific area, those that are working with you. It's great to know who's at the state level, but to be honest, it's those connections that you make locally that are really important. They are not, none whatsoever. How many folks are familiar with secondarytransition.org? A few? Not everyone? All right. Secondarytransition.org is our website for secondary transition in our state. We developed this about 2 years ago. What I wanted to mention about secondarytransition.org, when you go to this site, if you scroll down, there are different categories listed there. One is called agencies involvement. When you click on that, there is information regarding agencies at the state level, but then we also have a tab, when you click on it, the agencies are listed by county. That's really important, because I think if you're not sure what the agencies are in your area, you can go there and see what is available in your area. Now, those agencies could either, that information could either be listed electronically, take you to a website, or it may be a document that is listed. The website also, if you haven't gone there recently, it has been updated. There are different features on secondarytransition.org now. We have a disability-specific category. That video that you see there is an introduction to the website. It's a signed video, and we continually update this weekly. The other thing that's on here that's really helpful, we have a directory of secondary transition services for the state. If you go to information at the bottom of the website and click on it, we have a listing of all of the school districts in the state and the transition contact for those school districts. We have a listing of all the patent transition consultants, all the intermediate unit transition consultants, a list of all the OVR transition units, the early reach coordinators, a listing of the Centers for Independent Living, the folks connected to blindness and visual services. So it's a ton.
Under resources?
It's under at the bottom actually in, well, let me just show you real quick.
Yeah, that was
Hopefully I can get
nice
on
too.
this. We'll see. Technology has not been my friend this morning, so let's hope, right? All right, so on secondarytransition.org, if you go down, so this is what I was talking about, there's all these categories. And if you go down to the very, very bottom, it says contact. And when you click contact, it takes you to this page. And there's information on the 211. I don't know how many parts of the state have 211 hotline. They do have it in the Pittsburgh area. I believe they have it in the Philadelphia area. It's basically a hotline you can call for supports in that area. But this is the directory itself. So when you click on this, it'll take you, actually, it takes you out of secondary transition to the patent website, but this is the directory itself. So you just click it, it's downloadable, and what I was saying, I can just show you what's in the directory part of it. So it really is a useful document. People don't realize this exists, and oftentimes we'll get calls like, well, who's in my area? Well, it's in here. The other thing that's in here too, we have a listing of the folks on the state leadership team for secondary transition. This is helpful because these are the interagency members at the state level that are involved in secondary transition. So for example, if you have questions about students involved in the juvenile justice system, these would be good people to at least make an initial contact with. Let's go back up to where the guide is. So the things that are listed in here, these are the table of contents basically, right? So you do have, as I mentioned, the patent contacts, the IU contacts, and then state leadership team, we have all of the school districts listed, and then charter schools are listed, approved private schools are listed, information on VR, health, Centers for Independent Living. We have career tech ed centers listed here too with just like a primary contact, and then information on local transition councils. So it is it's worthwhile information. The site itself also, when you click on it, there are links to webinars that we have done in the past. There are, really, you could have a rainy Saturday and get a couple beers and sit down and have a good time going through it, because there's a lot of information in here. All right, so with that, and know that there are, all of our agency partners, but when talking about this with Dana, we really felt that because of all the changes with VR, it's important to kind of know the landscape. The other thing that we're going to spotlight, there was a project done, I guess it was like a year and a half now into it in Berks County, Career Tech Ed Center. And Dana's going to talk a little bit about that because that was a collaborative partnership with OVR. So with that, Dana, I'm going to turn this over to you and I will be in touch.
Okay, thank you. I guess just to show of hands, how many people know OVR, work regularly with OVR in their regular duties? Okay, so not so much. Okay. All right. Well, let me talk to you a little bit about this, and just to kind of give you some background. I've been with OVR for 23 years. I was a counselor for 10 years, a supervisor in a district office for 5 years, and I've been in our central office for the last 8 years. My undergraduate degree is in special education, and my master's is in rehab counseling. So this is something that is near and dear to my heart, and I've done a lot of work in school work transition, both at the state level and at the local level. Oh, it's going to work for me. All right. So basically, just our mission is essentially to assist Pennsylvanians with disabilities in securing and maintaining employment and independence. So we're federally mandated to serve all eligible individuals from the age of here in Pennsylvania, essentially 14 all the way up. Okay, so that's a big job. And our budget is very, very minuscule by comparison to some of our other state agency partners like the Department of Education or the Department of Human Services. So it's just, I throw that out there because I know that there are a lot of times people get frustrated with OVR, either because we don't have enough staff or our staff aren't readily available. And part of that is due to the budget that we have and the number of people we're required to serve. Pennsylvania has 460 voc rehab counselors across the state. There are currently approximately 100,000 students with IEPs between the ages of 14 and 21 in Pennsylvania. Okay, so, and that's a big. Okay, I'm going to need help on this one. All right, so basically, you can just keep pressing them. I'm just going to go through these very quickly because I want to get to the meat of the presentation. So a lot of the services that we provide are provided at no cost to students and their families. Diagnostic services, vocational evaluation, and counseling and guidance are services that we provide regularly. Diagnostics, sometimes folks come to us and they don't actually have a diagnosis, but they know that they have some sort of disability or disabling condition that's impacting their ability to work. So we may have to send them to get an actual diagnosis. A lot of the services that we provide are around evaluation and career assessment and vocational evaluation to assess abilities and the impact of limitations and so forth. The most important service that we provide is counseling and guidance, and that is really the crux of what our agency does, is provides vocational counseling and guidance to help folks with disabilities set appropriate vocational goals. So, and obviously a big part of that is informed choice, helping people to make informed choices about his or her future. Let me see if I can. Yeah, keep going. So other things that we do, depending, and these again are very individualized service. Not every person that comes to OVR is going to get every single one of these services, okay? It really is based upon the individual's goals, what their needs are, and what their limitations may be, as well as what their abilities are. So, we always say, as far as training is concerned, if somebody comes to us that has maybe a 5th grade reading level and they tell us that they want to be a doctor, okay, we'll say, okay, right now, we can't send you right into med school right away, but if that's really what you want to do, then this is what you have to accomplish in order to get there. And so we would lay out a plan and then let them make the choice as to whether or not they want to put forth the effort to get to that point. And we would be having discussions with them along the way about whether it was a realistic goal for them to achieve, and talking about the steps that they need to take. Another service that we provide is restoration services. Yes.
Sometimes when I go to different meetings, I hear that OVR is going to pay for college.
Okay. Well, basically, we do have financial aid available for training, post-secondary education and training. It is based upon financial need. Okay, so we follow the same rules that other sources like Pell and FIA use. It's called congressional methodology. It's the formula that's established by Congress in order to determine financial aid for students attending post-secondary education. So it's the same way Pell and FIA use, it's the same formula they use to determine how much a person's going to get. So a person is, in order to even be considered for financial aid through OVR, they have to first be determined eligible for our services. And then if they are interested in post-secondary education, they would have to apply for admissions, complete a FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, and submit that, and then we base how much we provide based upon that. So some students would get some students may not. Okay? All right. And placement assistance, one of the things that has changed in our agency fairly recently is now we have a whole business services section in terms of, we have a placement counselor, a business services representative whose sole job is to go out and cultivate relationships with employers. So if you are looking to establish internships, work-based learning experiences and so forth within your CTC, contact OVR and let us help you with that. We may already have an established relationship with a business in the area. Some programs that have been really successful have been out of the York district office. We've established programs with Hershey's Twizzlers factory, with the Starbucks Roasting Company, and I want to say Clark's Shoes Company. So in that area, now there is a lot of manufacturing and small business down in that area, but if you're interested in learning more about those, please let me know, and we will certainly do our best to connect you. And so the other thing, I want to touch on assistive technology for a second, because that is something that is kind of it's real important, especially for those students who may have physical disabilities or even more significant cognitive disabilities. It's the use of assistive technology in terms of accommodations for them in the classroom. One of the biggest challenges we have in working with the adult populations is that we find that there are a lot of folks with physical disabilities who are very dependent upon other people for different things, that they could be more independent if they had the proper use of assistive technology. And part of it is them learning how to use it and incorporating it into their lives on a day-to-day basis. So if you are involved in classroom instruction and so forth, and you're seeing a student who may need a specific accommodation, please, please, please consider the use of assistive technology for them. The more that they can incorporate it into their lives as a young person, the more proficient and effective they'll be in using it as an adult in the workplace. Okay? And then support services, all kinds of different things. That's one nice thing about working for OVRs. We can do a lot of different things. As long as it doesn't break any of our rules, we can do a lot of different things. And so, again, it's based upon the individual's needs. Employer services, again, we are working pretty regularly with business partners, chambers of commerce, the Business Leadership Network, and obviously the career links. All of our offices have staff that are stationed in a Pennsylvania career link. So, any questions so far? Yes.
See, you have training as one of your programs under OVR. Are you doing the training now, or are you sending it out to other short-term training programs that are in the communities?
We're doing both. So I'm going to talk a
go
little
into
bit
that?
more about that.
Thank you.
As Michael indicated, the way our organization does business is changing very, very dramatically as we speak. So
I have a question about assistive technology. While the student's still in school, can OVR assist with the payment of any assistance?
we're exploring that, and that's again part of the changes in our regulations in terms of transition services. Certainly, if it's related to an IEP goal, we would expect that the school district would fund it. If it's a technology that is very, very specifically related to a vocational objective and only a vocational objective, then we would consider providing it. So there are different things that we would take into consideration. Okay, so basically, again, services are provided on a case-by-case basis. No one individual gets exactly the same services. So it's really based upon individual need. And evaluation, counseling, and placement services are always provided at no cost to the individual. And, but other services may have a cost based upon financial needs. So we also apply a financial needs test to all of our services, okay? So if they, just in terms of eligibility, or if you have a question about who should be referred to OVR, here are some just general guidelines. A student has a disability that causes a substantial impediment to employment. There's an expectation that they're going to benefit from our services, and they have the need for multiple VR services over a period of at least 6 months, and that they really do have a desire and an interest in obtaining and maintaining employment. Now, I'm just going to throw this also out to you in terms of culture change. You know, there's no reason, regardless of the significance of a person's disability, that a working age adult should not be expected to work to their maximum capacity. So if you have a student that is in a wheelchair, uses augmentative communication, and needs an attendant for personal care needs, that person should be encouraged and expected to work up to their maximum capacity. Okay. I don't know how many students you have like that in your caseloads, but that's really kind of the culture change that we're seeing, in that the new regulations are encouraging that every person of working age, regardless of disability, of significance, should be encouraged and expected to work. Okay? So not everybody's going to be eligible for our services, but what is going to happen now is that more and more people are going to be referred to OVR in order to have an assessment to determine what services are appropriate for them. Okay? So basically, this is just our referral. You can call the local district office. You can ask to see if you have a liaison counselor, ask the counselor to come to your class and talk to your students, or make a referral directly to them. Or you could, somebody could submit a referral through the Commonwealth Workforce Development System. Okay? And that basically is an electronic referral that goes directly to the district office, and then it's assigned to a counselor who would then start the application process. Okay?
And also, I know I was in Philadelphia, and each of our high schools had an OVR counselor. They came to visit us, so we now had to, because of HIPAA, make sure that the parents said, yes, it's okay for me to speak to the OVR counselor.
Right.
But your high schools or your sending high schools may have those counselors that are already coming to
Yeah,
them.
we do attempt to provide a liaison counselor to every single school district in the Commonwealth, okay? I personally see, if you don't have one for your CTC, and I'm making, maybe I'm making the incorrect assumption that you're all affiliated with a Career and Tech Center. Okay. If you don't have a liaison counselor, please come see me, because I would love to have a liaison counselor to all of the CTCs. I think it's one of the most underutilized resources that we have here in Pennsylvania, especially for students with disabilities. So come and see me about that. Okay, so let's keep moving. Okay, so children under the age of 18 should have the support of a parent. You know, we realize that family dynamics are sometimes such that they don't always have a supportive family and so forth. We'll do whatever we can to work with you to make sure that we have the right releases, that we have the proper information to see a student. Okay, I think at one point we said, no, the student is our customer, and we're only concerned about the student. And then recognizing that, you know, parents are a big part of this. So we try to walk that fine line between respecting that young person's right to privacy and confidentiality, but also involving the parents as much as possible. And we don't necessarily need official documentation to start the referral process or complete an application. but certainly information that you folks can provide to us in the forms of school information, IEPs, comprehensive evaluation reports, if you have a school to work experience, portfolio, that kind of stuff is always helpful to us. Okay? We'll keep going. What time do we have?
We're fine, about 20 minutes,
I have 20 minutes to go?
about that.
Okay, well then let's get, okay. I'm gonna.
Sorry.
No, that's okay, I wanna keep going. When referrals are made, they have 15 days to get back to you, okay? And you have, all this is in the PowerPoint, so I'm gonna keep going. All right, I'm gonna get through, this is just general stuff, in terms of what to expect in terms of the application process. We have 60 days to make an eligibility determination, so that's just something that is important for you to know. And that the IPE is developed 90 days after eligibility. Okay? So, and the IPE is very similar to an IEP. It outlines the services that we're going to provide. It outlines the expectations that we have as a result of those services, criteria around progress, success of those services, and we can amend those at any time to be reviewed on an annual basis. Okay, who has heard of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act? Okay, WIOA. Yeah. This is, we say WIOA. So anyway, for you Wizard of Oz fans. So anyway, this is like really like groundbreaking legislation for us. And not just for us, but for education as well, because there are some very specific implications for students with more significant disabilities in terms of their post-secondary opportunities. Okay? So really the hugest part is the real focus on competitive integrated employment. Okay? Now, OVR has long been focused on competitive employment and integrated employment, but this now says that we have an increased responsibility to provide expanded supported employment services. We are now required to provide customized employment services. And we are, and this will be down a little bit, and section 511 says you can't tell anybody that they can go into sheltered employment until they've been to OVR. And school districts, by the way, you can't use sheltered employment providers as a means of transition programming any longer. Okay? So this may impact you folks in that you might be viewed as an alternative to those transition programs. Okay? And so that's where the whole idea of assistive technology, customized employment, all of those things are going to come into play here. You may be seeing referrals for students that you've never seen before. Okay, that's what we're going to be seeing. We're going to be serving students who we once determined too significantly disabled to benefit from our services. Okay, so. Huge emphasis in the law about employer engagement and business services. Huge emphasis on interagency collaboration. IDEA and the Rehab Act and even the CMS final rule, they've all have long since said you're going to collaborate, you're going to work together, and you have to figure out how you're going to coordinate services. This legislation says, like, you're going to do it or else. And it's increasing the stakes for all of us to do this. It also emphasizes the use of assistive technology. And then who here has heard of pre-employment transition services besides Ms. Evans in the back? Okay, well that is where we're going to spend some of our time here today, but So the days of students with disabilities leaving school poorly educated with no employment experiences, no job prospects, living lives of poverty, and too often ending up in segregated day programs needs to come to an end. So like that's really like the driving force behind the Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act. Okay? So basically, they're saying you're going to be responsible for providing work-based learning experiences. That no kid is going to leave school without work-based learning experiences. And I realize I'm preaching to the choir here to you guys, okay? And so I want to recognize that, and I appreciate that. But really, it's taking what you guys have known for a long time and saying, across the board, everybody's going to have a work experience. Pre-employment transition services, we're now required to spend 15% of our budget on students with disabilities, okay? And we define students with disabilities as students between the ages of 14 and 21 who are currently enrolled in secondary education. In secondary education. So if a kid leaves school, whether they age out, they graduate, or drop out, they are no longer considered a student with a disability. Which, we're still going to serve them even if they're then considered a youth with a disability, but we have this whole menu of new services that we're going to be providing to students with disabilities. Okay, so these are the pre-employment. Okay, so job exploration counseling, work-based learning experiences, counseling and opportunities for post-secondary education. Okay, workplace readiness training, and self-advocacy skills training. So we are now in the process of enrolling providers to provide group services as well as individualized services. So we have, and the other thing is that we're also required to serve with individuals who are, or students with disabilities who are potentially eligible for our services. So students with an IEP or a 504 plan, regardless of whether or not they've applied to OVR for services, can participate in our group pre-employment transition services. And those are group services including self-advocacy skills training, workplace readiness skills training, and independent living skills training. They're not broken out in here, but I will certainly provide you with more information about that. You would want to contact your local OVR office to get more information about those services. I know that we're even contracting with some intermediate units to provide those services as well. Okay?
Can you give a little detail on it? Just paint a picture of what that would look like?
Yeah, so it would look like, where are you from?
Crawford County.
Crawford County, of my favorite place on earth. I grew up and I went there on vacation. So anyway, okay, so let's say Venango, is Venango Training and Development serving your area?
I'm in Crawford County Career Tech.
Okay, what's a community rehab provider in your area? Goodwill, United Cerebral Palsy? Okay. Let's say UCP applies to OVR to become a provider of pre-employment transition services. And let's say you have a group of kids in your class, okay, that all of them have IEPs or 504 plans, and all of them really need self-advocacy skills, you know, in terms of advocating during their IEP process, how to disclose about their disability, how to ask for accommodations in the workplace, that kind of stuff. You could contact OVR. They could say, oh, we're going to send United Cerebral Palsy into your facility to do training. Now, all of our providers have to have their clearances, so everybody's already been approved, has their clearances, so there wouldn't be any reason they couldn't come in as long as your building, principal agrees to it. Okay, they could come in during a classroom, like period or like a study hall or something. The other thing that we could do is do it like in an after-school type of situation. We could do a summer program. There's all kinds of different things that we're willing to consider.
So is that, if I would need to set that up, and it would be just for students who are identified with IEPs?
Yeah, we really, we're happy that they expanded it to potentially eligible, but we can't provide services to individuals who are not identified as individuals with disabilities.
Yep, and it's not the local OVR rep, they're paying for someone from a different agency to.
Well,
to do that.
we are encouraging our staff to deliver those services as well. Some of our counselors are very good at public speaking and in running group services. Others, it's not their forte. So I think what we would encourage you to do is contact your local district office and talk with them about what you'd like to see happen, and just ask them what resources they have available to you. Okay? Thanks for the question. So this is the elimination of the use of sub-minimum wage is basically saying that before, well, first of all, that school districts can no longer contract with sub-minimum wage employment providers.
Can they do it themselves though?
Can you?
School districts.
No.
I have school districts that are doing, like, they give the kids, they call it a stipend for learning certain skills around the school.
Yeah,
That's not the same
that, no, they can't, but it's gonna be considered segregated, and I think that it's, are you from Adams County or?
No, not covered.
Montgomery, okay. Because I knew that there was a situation in Adams County where it was considered segregated work. So the whole idea is that are people interacting with other individuals without disabilities, or are they only interacting with other people with disabilities and their supports? Okay, so in terms of us, what we're doing in terms of creating some alternatives, we have, we're revising our supported employments policy. We're including discovery and customized employment. We're expanding Project Search. Is everybody familiar with Project Search? Yes, okay. Comprehensive transition programs. There are programs, and I don't know how many of you may have students with intellectual disabilities on your rosters, but we've changed our college policy. We're now providing financial aid according to the same formula we use for all other college students, for students with intellectual disabilities to participate in comprehensive transition programs. And they currently exist on 4 college campuses here in Pennsylvania: Millersville University, Mercyhurst University up in Erie, Millersville's in Lancaster, Slippery Rock University in Western Pennsylvania, and Arcadia University, which is outside of the Philadelphia area. Okay? And there will be more evolving, but basically it's a 2-year college certificate program where students are participating in academic classes, some independent living skills classes. They have kind of life coaches that kind of help them out in the dorms and navigating social systems and so forth. And then they have job coaches that they have work-based learning experiences. So it's a really neat opportunity, and it gives them a similar experience to same-age peers who are in college. Okay? So, all right, how much time do I have?
Got 10.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna jump on to the next, let's keep going. I'm gonna talk to you about the Work Partners Program. Has anybody here heard about the Work Partners Program? Okay. And where are you from?
I'm from Chester County, but I heard Berks Career Tech speak at ILC.
Oh, okay, okay. So this was, our former executive director was looking for more ways, creative ways for us to draw down some of our federal monies, that we had not received enough state match in the state budget to access all of the federal monies that were available to us from our federal partner. So he went out and he just cast this really large net and saying, hey, if you have some state money that you don't know what to do with, if you give me $1, for every $1 that you give me, I can give you $4 back, okay? So basically, it's a 20-80% breakdown where we get state funding from a local agency partner, and we give basically $4 to every dollar that you give us, 80%. And we have an agreement that we're gonna fund whatever it is that we wanna fund that is going to enhance vocational rehabilitation services for students with disabilities, okay? So when he threw out this net, Bob Lease from the Berks CTC approached our executive director, and he said, I think I have an idea that I want to float past you, and then he assigned it to me, and so we developed this concept. And so what he was faced with is he had a service occupations program that students were coming into at maybe 15, 16 years of age and staying in there until they aged out at 21. And he said, I just don't, he goes, and when they leave here, they're going into sheltered employment or they're going home and sitting on their couches, and I don't want to see that happen. So we talked about how could we, one, have them go into paid work as their post-school outcome. How could we shorten the length of time that they spend in that program, thereby making it possible for more students to get into that program over the course of their high school cycles. So what we did was, and we wanted to bring in a lot of different partners, knowing most of the students in those programs were students who had IEPs and who had intellectual disabilities. Okay? So looking at what other supports and services are those students going to need in order to successfully transition from school to work. So basically we identified the students we were going to work with. It was only going to be the Berks CTC, the Ole campus. There's 2 campuses at Berks, so we were going to focus on the Ole campus, and that there were 16 public schools that were going to feed into that system, and we were going to focus on those students. Go ahead. So the program consists of the career and tech ed instruction, which was already there. That was already in place. But we wanted to increase their work-based experiences, not just to the ones that were on campus, and maybe through the Goodwill organization that they work closely with, but really looking at getting them into the community and getting them hooked up with employers that could potentially offer them long-term employment opportunities. Also, providing supported employment services, job trainer services, so that what they found was the instructors just didn't have the time to go out and do this kind of stuff, do the job development, do the job training out in the community. So they needed another person and or persons to do those things. And so, and also to provide career counseling, development, placement, and then the follow-up that students need. We often find that students, it's not the technical stuff that they have problems with, you know, in terms of how to do the job. It's how to interact with other people, how to advocate for themselves, making sure that they get to work on time, those workplace readiness skills and soft skills. So they have 2 instructional areas, service occupations. They're serving 60 students. The students cross-train in all areas and switch instructors each quarter. And the program emphasizes job readiness, skill acquisition, and work experiences. Okay. So what this agreement did was we agreed to fund the salary and benefits for 2 positions, a school-to-work coordinator and a job coach who worked very intricately with the instructors and the OVR counselor. Okay, so basically it was a team that approached it. So the educational facilitators are doing kind of more of the front end, kind of like, okay, we have this program, you know, and looking at potential referrals for the program, look at marketing it to it. to the local school districts. I was just on a conference call with the team this morning, and they're looking at incorporating through our pre-employment transition services, a transportation component, whether it's a driver, like an intensive driver's education and or mobility training for those students who can't learn to drive. Yes.
You serving 2 instructional areas, what are they?
I believe it's culinary arts and environmental services.
And that would be
Agreement.
like, what's environmental service? It's on environmental design, it's like.
No, environmental services, I guess, like cleaning, custodial, yeah. Now, we want to expand beyond, the traditional food, filth, and flowers with this population. And I don't mean to be, but we want to expand to that. But there was a real need with this particular population or this particular program. So let me just see what else we have. Okay, so the other thing is, looking at benefits coordination. We have the benefits planner that I'm not able to accept it, but thank you.